Good morning, everyone. Welcome along to Slovakia Ring for qualifying for the first weekend of TCR Europe 2021, and what a difference a day makes. Yesterday was pretty cold. It was certainly very wet in the afternoon, and today it is still quite cold, but it is only 10 o'clock in the morning. But we pretty much have clear blue sky. A couple of clouds have arrived, but we are forecast for clear skies for today, which is qualifying and race one day. We will do our second race on Sunday, and Sunday is supposed to be even warmer once again. Morning to Jack Young, who is looking forward to getting into his brutal fish Honda. Mikael Ashkenar gets himself warmed up, a busy boy this year with World Touring Car commitments as well as European TCR and the new electric TCR series as well. Here is our 22 car entry list. We've got plenty of different brands, plenty of different types of car from same brands as well. The likes of Hyundai, we will debut the Elantra as well as the i30. We've got Peugeot, we've got a few different types of Cupra Leon, Competition, the Hondas and the Audi RS3s, and of course the 308 Peugeots also feature in our entry list. Tom Coronel makes a return to the full championship this year, as well as reigning champion Mehdi Benani and well-known driver Dusan Borkovic. Dusan and Tom Coronel driving for Come To You Racing, the team's champion from last year. It's colder than it was for pre-practice one, just 11 degrees air temperature and track temperature a couple of degrees down. But I think by the end of our qualifying session, we'll have temperatures pretty similar to what we saw from free practice one when we saw Ashkenar in pole position, or fastest at least by 0.3 of a second in that free practice 1 second. Let's go down to the pit lane with Mark James.
Jean-Philippe, I spoke to you yesterday ahead of free practice one. Now we know after 2 sessions how things are. How confident are you?
We will see. A bit difficult yesterday because of the weather change between the 2 sessions. So difficult to have a real idea and precise idea about the pace of the car. So the quali will be important for us to know where exactly we will be. So the engineers and all the drivers has worked hard since yesterday. So I will tell you again after the quali.
Neil showed us yesterday that the car is good in the wet. How good is it in the dry?
Yeah, exactly. But yesterday we try a lot of different setup between the 4 cars. We have this chance to test a lot of different things, and for sure the thing we test on Neil's car works, but on the dry condition we will see.
There's an awful lot new here, isn't it? New cars, new tires.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit difficult for us. We never went with the Hankook, and it's also a new car for us. So a lot of things to discover, and also to make the team work all together again, because it has been a long time since we have not been on a proper race on the track. So, but I'm confident that everything will evolve on a good way during the weekend.
Okay, good luck.
Thanks you.
Sebastian Loeb Racing making their debut, would you believe, in TCR Europe, as is the Elantra. And as mentioned by Mark James down there, new tyres for this year, Hankook tyres, and therefore a blank canvas really in terms of knowledge for all of our drivers. So lots for Sebastian Loeb Racing to work on. They were at the wrong end of the timesheets in free practice one. Mehdi Benani and Sami Taufluik right at the tail end of the field. But as they say, in the wet conditions, Niels Langeveld was up there in second position in this wet free practice two. So all is not lost. But unfortunately, when I went into their garage between the 2 sessions, there was a lot of work going on in the car. They were desperately trying to find the pace and change things. And of course, then the rain came in free practice 2, and they weren't really able to understand whether the changes really had helped. Let's now go down to Yannick Motorsport, one of our relatively local teams, with Matto Homola, the local legend.
Pavel, we've just heard Ben talk about the local hero, Matto Homola, at his home circuit. How are you looking forward to qualifying?
Yeah, we are happy that we are here on the Slovakia. It is our home track, and Matto is a great driver with so much experiences. and it is this side that say this start with our team and with the Joachim say make this great pair for the season, and we make absolutely maximum for the disqualification. Yeah, and Matteo need, and we need as a team this Matteo experiences.
Is there more pressure on you and Matto because it's your home race?
Sorry, just one?
Is there more pressure because you are at home?
Yes, yes, it is a pressure for the Matteo, for the whole team, but we are the professional, and Matteo is a great driver, and he can work with this.
Good luck, we'll see you later.
See you, thank you very much.
Matto Homela moving across from the Hyundai i30 BRC team. It was effectively a kind of a pseudo works team last year into this Yannick Motorsports team, and helping Joachim Galasch as kind of, we see in a couple of the different teams around the Europe paddock, with the experienced driver helping both team and less experienced teammate. Now I'm trying to see if we had Joachim Galasch in the championship last year. I think he is one that is making his debut. But of course, Matto Homela was with us all year and ended up finishing last year's championship in 7th position, taking a couple of podiums along the way. Interestingly, about last year's championship, Mehdi Banani won the championship but never stood on the top step of the podium. So it's consistency that's key in this championship. There's a lot of points available, 40 points for race victory, 35 for second and 30 for third. And therefore, consistency is key across the whole year, and picking up the odd point in qualifying as well. There is points for the top 10. A reminder for you, a 20-minute qualifying one session where we reduce the field from 22 cars down to just 12. And then with a 5-minute gap, we will go again for the final 10 minutes of qualifying, where we will award those points, 10 down to 1 for first down to 10th. We will also decide the grid for the 2 races, with pole position for race 1 going to the fastest man in qualifying, pole position for race 2 going to the man who gets 10th position in Q2. So Q1 is all about getting into Q2 effectively, and there are some drivers, I think, that might be concerned about getting into that cut-off point. Certainly the Sebastian Loeb Hyundais from yesterday, you would suggest that they were either sandbagging or they are struggling, and we will find out when the pace is set in this session. 2:10.9 was our time in free practice 1. And I don't imagine the track conditions are much different to free practice 1. Yes, we've got slightly less temperature, but ultimately we don't really have any more rubber down on the track. We did have a TCR Eastern Europe session just before this one, but the Hankook tyres, but basically after big rain last night, our aperitif, which is such a thing for TCR Europe, was interrupted by incredible rainfall. We could hardly speak to each other. So that will have washed any rubber that was put down yesterday, and we will have a very green track. Now, not sure how many drivers got a proper qualifying simulation out of their Hankook tyres yesterday. We saw a couple of drivers doing the session in half with a kind of a break in the middle to change tyre pressures and spring rates and things like that. We didn't really see anyone do a big qualifying push. Others were doing a full race length. It seems as though the Hankook tyre does not have the peak that we perhaps saw from other tyres, where you can get 1 lap pace out of a tyre. Also, it doesn't seem as though, from what I've deemed from talking to some drivers, that the tyre drops off massively at the end of an 11-lap race, but there is a bit of a drop-off. That won't be a concern, though, for qualifying. We'll see that more in the race. And the other thing to watch out for is slipstream around this circuit. It's quite long and flowing. It's very easy to trip over somebody else making a mistake. But I see that Tom Coronel is the first man to break the beam at the start of this long queue of cars. Nicolas Beat and Dusan Borkovic behind him. So they've all basically gone out in teams championship order, is how the garage was allocated. We've got the Hondas going back into the pits from Brutal Fish. So that's Martin Rieber, Jack Young, and Isidro Callejas. They've gone back into pit lane, as has the Volcano team, Evgeny Leonov and Mikhail Ashkina. Now, Mikhail Ashkina did all of the brake bedding in for his team yesterday. Now, what's going on here is they are swapping, or looks like they are going to... Actually, it looks like on Martin Rieber's car, they're simply going to change the front tyres. Sometimes you would change the front tyres and put those front tyres on the rear, but I think we're seeing here a little bit of just scrubbing in some tyres. They didn't have the time to do it yesterday in free practice 2, so just getting rid of that shiny surface on the top of the Hankook tyres so that those tyres are prepped and ready to go for later in the day. Remember, we are in the first round of the championship, so they are allocated 12 brand new tyres for the whole weekend, and they probably only used one set in free practice 1, then the wets went on for free practice 2. So that's what we're seeing here, just scrubbing the surface layer. Coronel and the Come To You guys have decided to stay out. They are one of only a few teams actually to stay out, and therefore we're going to see Tom Coronel set a benchmark for us, for everybody else to chase. Coronel very happy in this Audi RS3. It's a car that has done many a year now in TCR. The technology coming kind of to the end of its life. Coronel breaks the beam at a 2:11.9, so a second off what we saw in free practice 1. Remember, Audi do have a brand new RS3 out, not for customers yet, and therefore not eligible for TCR Europe, only being used by Tom, in fact, in the World TCR. Now, what's happened to Nicolas Bert? That is him coming into the pits. Yeah, okay, so he did 2 laps and then came in, as did Dusan Borkovic. So Coronel, one of very few drivers to actually set a time so far, and they are all kind of doing a bit of stuff that they should have done in free practice 2 here, and just kind of catching up with themselves. So that car of Tom Coronel's then is the car that Nathan Berton used last year. Coronel's Audi RS3 sold to, he believes, a Polish driver. Dusan Borkovic, we think, although Dusan wasn't sure, is in the car that Mehdi Banani drove to championship victory last year. Borkovic very happy to have some space in the car. Obviously a very tall lad, and for many of the TCR cars that he's driven, it's always been a bit of a struggle to get him inside, but reporting that the Audi is much more comfortable. Although the way it behaves, the way it brakes on the tyres, but also the length of the car, certainly for him is still slightly spooky. The longer wheelbase means it does behave quite differently to the likes of the old Cupra Leon, for instance, much shorter wheelbase, or the Alfa Romeo that he drove a few years back. Dusan dominating the Central Europe TCR Championship last year. Kept his foot in with a little bit of experience. Coronel's second lap is going to be a lot faster than his first. Breaks the beam at a 2:11.2, so 7/10 faster than his first lap, and that's interesting to note, therefore, that these tyres have more than one lap in them, and it's a long lap too, because we're at 2 minutes 11 is the lap around here. It's going to be a relatively long lap at Paul Ricard when we go there in a few weeks' time, and I imagine Spa-Francorchamps too, so it does mean that these Hankooks hold on. Here's Matto Homola then, the Slovakian driver, and he is going to finish his first lap, moves up to 3rd position, but actually it's his next lap that we want to see, because that will be more of a second lap seems to be a better opportunity to push than the first. Coronel goes slower in sector 1 of his 3rd attempt, and I imagine he will be trundling back to pit lane, having done what he hopes will be enough to get him through into the second part of qualifying. Remember, that's all they need to do here. They need to get through into Q2 to have a chance for qualifying. The 3 Elantras line astern with Niels Langeveld leading the 3. Niels was the fastest of the 4 cars entered by Sebastian Loeb Racing. Mehdi Banani, Sami Taflik and Felice Yelmini aboard the other 3 cars. Very different car for Felice, who's been only 1 season in TCR Italy. And before that, he was in, I think, Clio's, so very short wheelbase car. This is, as I found out yesterday, 25 centimetres longer than the i30, and in terms of wheelbase, 10 centimetres longer. 10 centimetres doesn't sound like a lot, but when you imagine it's rotating around the front wheels, it will feel quite a lot different. Langeveld balancing the car nicely. Oh, now we've got a red flag. Red flag out on circuit with 10 minutes and 45 seconds remaining. Sorry, 11:07, so that clock up the top there, and it is Teddy Claret who is in the gravel trap. So we will still have 11 minutes to go. Teddy's got the engine running, but the gravel traps are efficient, especially when they're wet from overnight rain. They do what they need to do. So Tauflik comes into pit lane. And we take a break for a moment. And that's going to slightly ruin all of those plans that everybody had. Matto Homolo was on his 2nd lap when the red flag came out on those tyres. And very few cars have done a lap time at all. So it's going to be a real push when we get the session back underway to get some times in, with just 11 minutes remaining, well, about half the session remaining once they get over the start and finishing line. Brand new tyres waiting for Tom Coronel's car. They will be bolted on. Remember, no tyre warmers available to our teams. They do keep the tyres in like in an awning, in a tent, and then they warm the air in that tent so that you're not starting with tyres that have been sitting in the sun, and that affects the way that they react, but also that aren't stone cold. It's a very good place to hide, by the way, on mornings like this where it's only 11 degrees. Just a few cars left to get back into pit lane. In fact, Nicolas Bert is the last car. Sorry, Nicolas Bart. And he is making his way slowly back into the box. So Teddy Claret being pulled out of the gravel. Now on the access road, but having caused a red flag, I would imagine that he is no longer able to take part in qualifying. So that will mean that Claret starts at the tail of the field. Did I say Nicolas Bart? I feel like I've said Nicolas Bart there, but I didn't mean that. I meant Teddy Claret, who was in the gravel. Good morning to Phil Kinch. Thank you very much for all your messages, as always. I think we were talking about Joachim Galasch earlier on making his TCR debut. TCR Eastern Europe finished second behind Dusan Borkovic last year, but he does make his Europe debut. Now, I was looking at denominations for juniors and all the various different championships that we got in this year. There's a diamond one that Wikipedia talk about. Entirely sure whether I've managed to read up about the diamond championship. Let's not forget, big change this year is that 2 drop scores for the Drivers' Championship. So that, number 1, allows any travel complications to not have an effect on the overall championship. Number 2, it also means that the one clash that we have with the World Touring Car Cup, where Michael Ashkenar and Tom Coronel will be participating, as potentially others will as well, will not affect the overall championship here. So a really good initiative. The Teams Championship, however, will have no drop scores, and we also have a Junior Championship. Now, we have a Rookie Championship. Now, the Rookie Championship is participated by drivers under the age of 23, and they must not have competed in TCR Europe. So it's not TCR totally, it's TCR Europe, but you have to be under 23 to be in the rookie category. So Nicolas Albert only just makes it back into pit lane just as we go back to racing, and he blocks the whole pit lane. He's pretty much the first car, so everyone having to wait for Nicolas to be put in, and now it's going to be a quick change around to get Nicolas' front wheels changed and then onto the tail end of the field. Now you can see Tom Coronel is in the back of shot there, and I don't think he is coming out for the moment. He's certainly letting everybody else go past, because everybody else needs a time. And really, you've got to say that other than Tom, nobody else really got a representative time in. We did see Matto Homola do 3 laps. Joachim Galasch did 3 laps. Daniel Nage did 3 laps, as did both Clares. But both Clares were 5 and 7 seconds off the pace, and Daniel Nage was 3.5 seconds off the pace. So really, maybe Matto Homola's time was representative, but Tom's was not. Looks as though they might be going, though. But maybe he is doing his tyre scrubbing now rather than later on. We've got Bonnet up at the back of shot there. Can't see who that was. But certainly concern for one of the cars in pit lane. It may be that it was a car from another championship, just at the very back of that shot. Tom Coronel doesn't look like he's moving anywhere. Jimmy Claret is in pits lane. Now, I don't think he's safe. He's in 6th position. He's 7 seconds off the pace. So I would be going again if I was Jimmy Claret. The only other car that is in pit lane with a bonnet up is Matto Homola. So that was the car that we saw at the back of shot. Homola stays in the pit lane right now. Bonnet up could be an issue, just could be that they're trying to cool the engine because the slow rolling into the pits lap was not efficient enough to cool down the engine. Is Matto happy enough with a 2:12.4 to get him through into Q2? There he is, bonnet up. No one looking under the bonnet, but there is a little bit of data being read by the engineers coming out of the car. So I wonder whether Matto is experiencing or reporting some kind of an issue. Jimmy Claret comes out of the pits with clear track. I never understand in touring car racing, in all of my time, why they all go out at the same time. Look at it, it's a big queue of cars. Jimmy Claret, though, has a clear track and he can get on with it. There's Teddy Claret, bonnet up, helmet off, and he's just about to jump out of the car. Unfortunately, he will start at the very, very tail of the field for both of the races, for race 1 today and race 2 tomorrow. Don't expect these first lap times to mean too much, but they are pushing. And they only have one chance as well. 20 cars, well actually 19 cars on track. Coronel and Homola stay in pit lane as 1-2 at the moment, although Homler now exits pit lane. He's not happy with his 2:12.2, and there was perhaps an issue with the car that he needs to check and come back onto circuit. Borkovic is the man, I believe, that has the clearest track and leads the field around right now, and he is a fraction faster than teammate Tom Coronel. Borkovic and Coronel know each other very well, have raced alongside each other, and have had some famous incidents and accidents over their time. And now they are teammates throughout the year, and there is a little bit of concern from the guys at Yannick Motorsports. Something has been leaking out of Matto Homler's car, and that is just being tidied up by the marshals down there in pit lane. Over the second of the brows here at the Slovakia Ring, there are two hills that allow access underneath the track. Coronel goes out perhaps to do some scrubbing, or perhaps just as a safety. Borkovic comes over the second of the brows now and heads to the end of the lap. I'm going to get confused by the two brows across the weekend, so apologies if I do get the wrong bit of track at the wrong time. Through the final corner then, and Borkovic is going to go faster here than Tom Coronel, and crucially, he's going to go faster on his first lap out of the pits. Bang, straight up into P1 for Dusan Borkovic. That is 0.2 faster than we saw in free practice 1. Still needs to do it in qualifying 2, of course. Ashkanar was fastest in free practice 1 and goes fastest here with a 2:10.5, knocking Borkovic down to second, but Coronel holds on in third position. Claret will play no further part. The times all ticking through for their first efforts as drivers stream across the start and finishing line here in Slovakia. Into the pits comes Felice Jelmini. Now that is concern for Sebastian Loeb Racing. What are they doing with that car? Did they not get a chance to change his tyres over in the first red flag? Don't know why they wouldn't have done, but he hasn't set a time. He's going to be 22nd at the moment because let's not forget that even though Teddy Claret is out on, Jimmy Claret is out on circuit, he did set a time before he spun off into the gravel. Tyre pressure's being changed and then, checked, and now the new tyre goes on. These guys don't seem in much of a rush. With only 4 minutes and 50 seconds remaining, it's giving Felice not a lot of time to bang in that lap time. Now remember, we only need to get into the top 12 right now. And two of his teammates are in the top 12. Mehdi Banani 8th and Niels Langeveld in 11th position. Martin Rieber and Jack Young for Brutal Fish outside of the top 12 right now. Sami Taufluik for the Sebastian Loeb team in 17th position. And then Team Claret Sport at the tail of the field with Sylvain Pussier, Gilles Colombani, the slowest in our free practice sessions, and at the tail of our field as well. Jimmy Claret in the 308 goes faster than them, but stays in 18th spot. So it's not looking good for Claret Sport right now. 18th, 19th, 20th and 21st, with Jelmini not setting a time right now. Borkovic over the line, does not improve that time. His middle sector was slower, and I think that that's now 2 laps on the tyre. He doesn't have an opportunity to go faster, but let's see if that is proven different. Ashkanar, Borkovic, Coronel, Bet is our top 4, and the people outside of the top 12. Galash in 13th, Davidovsky in 14th, Jack Young, Martin Rieber, Sami Taufluik, and then the Claret Sport cars as Daniel Nage pots himself up into 4th position. All of the top 12 times will be wiped out after this session, though. And Sebastian Loeb Racing back into pit lane once again with just 3 minutes remaining. I think the tyres are better after 2 laps, you know, and they're not going to get 2 laps out of it. Niels Langeveld now sits on the bubble as Matto Homler gets himself up. Is it Matto Homler that's gone up? Somebody has moved into the top 12, and therefore Niels Langeveld is under threat here, and he's in the pits. Coronel, fastest sector in Sector 1, faster than he's been in Sector 2. And looks like he might try and improve. Come to you Racing at the moment, second, third and fourth position in the Audi RS3s. The Audi is really suited to this circuit, is really the car to have. A longer wheelbase car. All the TCR cars seem to have grown over the last couple of years. And Coronel does go up into second position ahead of his two teammates, and pretty much matches Mikael Ashkina. Right then, 2 minutes remaining. We need to have a look at the guys who are not in the top 12. Langeveld is in 12th position. No, that's not Langeveld. Langeveld's in the pits. Can't quite see which one of... It is Niels Langeveld, isn't it? Yeah. Very confused. Timing screen says he's in the pits, but we can see him on track. He is in 12th. He needs to improve. And this is his warm-up lap, so that's why the timing screen is a little bit behind. Jack Young needs to get into the top 12, and it looks as though he will not, because they're looking at the front left of that car, and I think there was a problem with it. So Jack Young is going to stay in pit lane and therefore not progress anymore. Klim Gavrilov. VLC team, the only single car team, or one of two single car teams in fact. Ashkina in the pits, he's done. Easy through to Q2. 1 minute remaining then. Jakim Galash, I think, will want to get... Martin Rieber will certainly want to get through. Here is Viktor Davidovsky. He's in 15th right now, and it's not looking good for Honda. 15th, 16th and 17th for the Hondas. There is Girolami in 6th position and through, and Isidro Callejas, who's being trained by Pepe Oriola, in 11th position. So he's through as well. No concern for Mikael Ashkina, no problems at all. He is through. Felice Jelmini, remember, he's not even set a time yet. So if he goes through, then he could potentially bump his teammate out of the Q2 session. Middle part of the lap, he's faster than, well, it says he's faster than anybody through the first part of the lap. We haven't really seen the pace of the Hyundai Elantra so far. Free practice 1 looked really bad for them, but they have been testing, so they shouldn't be that lost. And Jelmini loses 1.4 seconds to Ashkina's time in the middle sector of the lap. Is it enough? 1.4, it would put him in the second half of the top 10 right now. Second half, the third sector of the lap, just 30 seconds in length. A little discussion going on down there. Langeveld is pushing, you can see he is there, and Jelmini only just goes through. 12th position for Jelmini, but Langeveld therefore out and 13th. Where is Jelmini? He is on circuit, but he needs to push. He needs to improve his time, and he is not for the moment improving in the first sector of the lap. Jimmy Claret goes across the line, improves up to 15th, but will not go through. Leonov comes into the pits. He is at the moment 10th, so he will go through into Q2. Here's Langeveld. And this probably is the biggest shock of them all, being bumped out of Q2 by his teammate. And we haven't yet seen that long second sector to see if he has improved on his last attempt. Second in free practice 2 in the wet. Viktor Davidovsky is out there, but not improving. And so really, the only person that can do this is Niels Langeveld. 1.6 down in the middle sector. That is an improvement for him, but is it enough? He only needs to find a 10th, less than a 10th on his teammate Jelmini to get through into Q2. Mehdi Bunani is through. So it is going to be only 2 Sebastian Loeb cars Is it Langeveld or is it Jelmeny? Across the line. And it is Langeveld who misses out. Felice Jelmeny getting through by the skin of his teeth and knocking his teammate out of the potential top 12. And a shake of the head from the team there. Not sure what they could have done differently, to be fair. But certainly not the kind of performance that they would be expecting from a brand new Hyundai, and also from a team such as Sebastian Loeb Racing, a very, very experienced team across all forms of motorsport. Sebastian Loeb himself, not hugely involved in the team, but Sebastian Loeb Racing, run by the guy who effectively initially funded Sebastian in rallying. A long-term relationship between the two. And if it wasn't for him, we would never have heard of Sebastian Loeb, and he would never have had the chance to win all those world championships. So we clear out what we saw in the top 12. Jimmy Claret has seemed to have stopped in the middle of pit lane, so is needing a push. He unfortunately did not get through, but he didn't languish at the tail end of the field. So Claret Sport, I think he will start 15th in both the races. His brother will start last, and their two customer cars, which are Cupras, they're not Peugeots, they will be at the tail of the field as well. There is Felice Jelmeny. Absolutely last-minute attempt. We saw him twice last year in TCR Europe, but ultimately it was TCR Italy where he's gained his experience. And into the pits comes Niels Langeveld. I do like how those headlights flash as they come down pit lane. It's not him doing that manually, that is an automatic flashing, but it does look as though the headlights kind of move around as well, like disco lights. So, scrutineers place the Parc Ferme label on the car. That means you're going no further and you can't touch the car. They'll take the tyre pressures from the car, and that is it. Dusan Borkovic with work being done on his, because he is progressing through into the second part of qualifying. There is Niels. Same cheese sponsor as Tom Coronel, hence the familiar helmet. But for a man with the experience of Niels, he will not be happy with being knocked out of qualifying in the first part. Right, we'll find out how he feels then. 13th position for Niels Langeveld down there with Mark James.
Niels looked very exciting, very close. We thought you'd done it.
Yeah, well, I didn't, but in my last run, I was just a little bit too careful in the first corner, and the longer the stint, the more understeer I got during the session. The first one was the best, but then obviously the red flag came out, because for sure that would have been enough. What can I say? Quite disappointing, especially P13. But we're still in a learning process with the car, getting step by step better, and I'm sure Hyundai and the team will make a big effort to get there, and I will get there myself. I need to learn, adapt, and push for the next one.
Hold on, sorry.
Nothing worse than saying well done to a driver that's just qualified 13th, but I forgive you, Mark, it's okay. And Niels certainly disappointed as well, but you got the feeling from the moment we saw those cars in free practice 1 that they were not up to speed, There were a couple of people in the paddock saying, no, don't worry about it, they're just sandbagging. But clearly, Sebastian Loeb Racing haven't quite got on top of that Elantra quite yet. It's a new car. They've done some testing on it, but I don't know how much testing they've done on the Hankook tyre. Remember, that's a different tyre to used in other championships. You can, each different promoter, each different TCR promoter can have different tyres for their different championships. So we have a plethora of different tyres on offer across the different championships in TCR. And this Hankook new to TCR Europe this year. Now Coronel staying in pit lane, the only man to do so, I think. Just letting everybody go out and make some space for him. He did go out at the end of that last session and improve his time. So he's put a heat cycle through the tyres, and I think they are being rotated now. So that means the front tyres are being put on the rear with the temperature, and then the colder rear tyres are going on the front so that he can generate temperature in those fronts. Because it's a lot easier to generate temperature in the tyres that are doing stuff, turning and accelerating, than it is for the rear tyres that are just there to support the rear bumper from dragging along the ground. But there is no concern. You can see brand new stickered tyres going on the front. Coronel chilling out. A circuit that, as he said yesterday, he's won 3 times in 7 attempts here, so that's a pretty good success rate. He doesn't know why he likes it, but it's clear that he does. The Audi is a car that suits the circuit as well. And here are the two Volcano team cars then. Ashkana leading Leonov around. And that's kind of exactly what they want to do. That's exactly how they want to play it. Leonov letting Mehdi Banani through. No, not sure if Banani is pushing for a lap. Klim Gavrilov has come into the pits in his RS3. So still cycling through the tyres for him. And now Banani is on a lap, so he is pushing, whereas the two Cupra Competiciones are not. Mato Homola still with that leak that we saw in first session, so Homola not out on circuit either. And we've only got 6 minutes of the session remaining, so worth going out, banging in a lap time, even if you've got that leak. As long as it doesn't destroy the engine, of course. Right, so here's Mehdi Banani with a bundle of understeer in the middle part of the lap. Scrabbling to keep the car on the circuit. Understeer being the problem, the length of the car meaning that it can't rotate as easily around the front axle. That's why TCR cars began their life so short, because you want it to rotate, but that car, it looks heavy. It looks as though it's carrying an extra person in it, the way it's behaving on circuit. Presumably, Banani will be on a new set of Hankook tyres, so we'll be getting the best of the grip out of the tyres. We heard from Longeveld that he was getting more and more understeer as he went along. Now, there's not big braking zones here to get the car to rotate. That being one, at least the rear wheel lifting off the ground, but in some of the other longer corners, difficult to do that when you're back onto the power. And Mehdi Banani does a 2:12.3. Now, he'll keep pushing because I believe the second lap is a faster lap. And behind him then, you have Ashkana and Leonov and Daniel Naj, who's gone to the top of the timing sheets, but he's deposed by Dusan Borkovic, who does a 2:10.7. So Borkovic then with a competitive lap time. I reckon we might see times a little bit faster than that. Borkovic might need to find a couple of tenths if he wants to take pole position. Oh no, Homola out of the car. Will not qualify and will start both races in 12th position. That's exactly what he did not want. And now Yannick Motorsport with some work to do to get that car ready for the race. Home race for Mato Homola, and the two home drivers will start outside the top 10 positions. Nicolas Bout goes up into 2nd position. just 2.5 tenths off Dusan Borkovic. And now Ashkanar is pushing, with Leonov, his teammate, behind him, copying his every move, although Leonov half a second slower in the first sector of the lap alone. Oh, Matto, feel for you, man. There's Mehdi Banani then, and behind him, Ashkanar, and then Leonov. Banani is not pushing on this lap, which is a surprise, because does that mean he's going to go in the pits and change tyres? Has he got enough time with 3.5 minutes remaining? It certainly seems to be the style of Sebastian Loeb Racing to get those cars in and out of the pits. We saw that in the first qualifying session. They're in and out like a yo-yo. Nicolas Bat, fastest man through the first sector of all the cars that are out there right now. Just a tenth faster than Ashkanar, but Ashkanar himself not massively faster than what Dusan Borkovic managed last lap. Through the last couple of corners, is this going to be enough for Ashkanar to take the pole position? He was fastest in free practice 1. He does go faster, but by just half a tenth of a second. Leonov over the line, and where does he slot in? 9th position, so the slowest of the cars out on circuit right now. We haven't got a time yet from Tom Coronel or Klim Gavrilov. Matto Homler will not set a time, and Borkovic does not improve on his second lap. Here's Nicolas Bat. He is pushing on his second lap. He's been pushed down to 4th position. Fastest of anyone through the first sector, faster than he was through the second sector. This looks like it could be a good lap. Is it good enough? Yes, it is. He goes to pole position. Nicolas Bat ahead of the Cupra Leon Competizione of Ashkanar. Borkovic in 3rd, and the 3rd of the Come To You Racing cars of Tom Coronel has started a lap, but he's not as fast in the first sector as Bat. Here he is. Long middle sector, and he is faster by 0.3 of a second than Nicolas Bat. It's very, very close at the top of the timing at the moment. Just 1.5 tenths separating the top 3 cars, and just a short sector now for Tom Coronel to navigate before we find out if he is faster. Yes, he is. By 0.2 of a second, Coronel takes provisional pole, and he will push again for a second lap with just 1 minute and 10 seconds remaining. And the moment, nobody on track is faster than him. Mehdi Banani sits in 10th position. Felice Yelmini in 9th. Isidro Callejas in 8th position. Gavrilov 7th, Girolami in 6th. We haven't really spoken about Girolami, but he's the best of the Hondas right now. Then Daniel Naj, 5th, Borkovic 4th, Ashkanar, Bat, and it's an all Come To You Racing front row right now with Coronel on pole. Banani improving over the line, but only enough to get him into 10th position. That would be good enough for pole position in race 2, though, remember. And really, with only one car outside, only one car running that will fall outside of that top 10, there is a good chance to be pretty slow and get that pole for race 2. It would be a lockout for Sebastian Loeb Racing in race 2 with Felice Yelmini in 9th position right now. Coronel's backed off, so he's at a very slow first sector, and he's not going to try again. And looking at the timing screens, who's he under threat by? Klim Gavrilov, perhaps? Gavrilov as fast as he was in sector 1 of the lap. Here he is, still pushing. Most cars back in pit lane now, but Gavrilov cutting the track, getting his wheels on the grass. Middle sector, oh, a second off Tom Coronel. Still, that wouldn't even be an improvement for him. I think he might stay 7th, although he will take the checkered flag. Ashkanar is pushing as well. Really late in the session. So Coronel does have a threat still. Not from Gavrilov. He goes into pit lane, but where is Ashkanar on circuit? He's 3rd at the moment. a Cupra sandwich in a very heavy breaded Audi RS3 come to you racing front two rows with Dusan Borkovic in fourth. Can Ashkenar upset the come to you racing party in the new Cupra Leon Competition? Daniel Naj is following him, but Naj was half a second off in the first sector alone. Now breaks the beam and Ashkenar's 2.5 tenths off. This might be good enough to put Ashkenar onto the front row, but it's got to find a lot in the 32nd last sector to get himself onto the front row here, or get himself onto pole position. Volcano Motorsport watching on. And here come Ashkenar. Can he do it? Can he get pole position? No, he cannot, but he does get up into second spot, and he will start on the front row. Moving ahead of Nicolas Bart, who drops down to second row with Dusan Borkovic. And that, therefore, is qualifying done and dusted. Coronel has the pole position by 1.5 tenths over Mikael Ashkenar, with Bart and Borkovic for Come To You Racing on row 2. Daniel Naj and Franco Girolami on row 3. Gavrilov and Callejas on row 4. Yelmany and Banani on row 5, which will be the front row for race 2. And Evgeny Leonov missing out by 0.3 of a second and sitting in 11th position. So Coronel then is our championship leader after qualifying. He picks up 10 points for that effort. And Coronel making sure that the GoPros are removed. And they'll be given to his media manager, Alvin, and you'll be able to watch all of that lap on social media very, very shortly. Hugs all round. As I say, a car that Tom knows well, and a track that he has been successful with and knows well as well. And that is a nice way to kick off the season. There you go, driver's points updated. Coronel with 10. Ashkenar, there he is with 9. And at the end of the day, unfortunately, rather dropped his teammate. 2 seconds was the difference across that lap when Leonov started behind, but he was unable to turn around the full lap. And so Ashkenar will then be working with his Russian teammate until the race to get that pace up a little bit more. Let's go down to the pit lane with our pole man, Tom Coronel.
Tom, you told me yesterday you were just playing in the rain. That was pretty serious, wasn't it?
This was serious because I didn't know where the others are. So I pushed on the limit, you know. It was one of those days that you say, what's happening? And I went out later than the others to see what lap times they were doing, but I didn't know because my lap timer wasn't working. So I didn't know where I was. So after the finish line, I said, where am I? And they said, yeah, very nice P1. So I pushed it. I even overshoot in the infield. You saw me going really wide. So I was like, a small mistake, but no, I felt very good.
You obviously like it here.
Yeah, somehow. I don't know why. This circuit always suits me. In testings, I've always been the fastest with the team. Well, as you know, from the 7 races, WTCR and WTCC, I won 3 here. So I don't know. I like the circuit. The circuit is good to me. It's good on eating the tire with the car. So you have to be gentle at the right points. And I think I did that without any big mistakes. So very happy. The start of the season is starting very well. First race directly to take the pole position.
Predictions for race 1?
Predictions. This is TCR, you know. I like touring car racing, as you know. My brother even says, Tim, what are you driving? WTCR, TCR Europe. I said, Europe. I'm going to watch it because he says that the fights are so big. So I hope we will have a good fight with all the guys. And yeah, you know my style. You know, I'd rather become second with a big fight with a big smile than to win a race with 10 seconds because that's boring.
See you later.
Yep.
Well, I expect Tom to make a dreadful start then and fall into the back of the field and then make his way through to win. That's my prediction. We've seen it before, actually. Maybe it wasn't in real world. Maybe it was in virtual world. But I certainly have seen Tom drop back. And hello to Tim, if you are watching. I'm sure you will be a little bit later on. It's a Coronel on pole position. Tom Coronel, that is, with Mikel Ashkenar, the two most experienced drivers, I guess, in the field on the front row. Bart and Borkovic all come to you racing row 2. Daniel Naj and Franco Girolami on row 3, brother of. And then Gavrilov and Callejas. Well done to Pepe Oriola for getting his man up into 8th position. Points for Felice Yelmany and Mehdi Banani will be on the pole for race 2. Leonov missing out, and Homler, unfortunately, one of those guys with an issue. We'll be heading over with our social media camera to find out exactly what that issue was, because he will be a little bit frustrated with that. There is Niklas Baer, who did a great job early on in the session to get himself on the pole position. And therefore, drivers' points already for the top 10. And Coronel takes an early championship lead. 40 points on offer for race 1 and race 2. 30 points, 35 for second and 30 for third. Race 1 coming up for you this afternoon, and race 2 tomorrow afternoon. So make sure you join us across all of our channels, and we look forward to seeing just what entertainment Tom Coronel can give us in a few hours' time. We'll see you then.